So look, so I'm sitting here minding other folks' business like I want to do, winding up some bias tape because, I'm cleaning up the sewing room. And I started thinking about some old true crime cases that I used to follow back in the day, ones that I paid attention to. Recently, I went back and covered an old case. That's the case of the state of California versus Cinnamon Brown. It's an old case back from like the early 90s. And I was thinking, I wonder if there are any old cases from back then that I should follow up on just to see where the people are, Oh, wait. Welcome to Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo. I'm Kathy. Y'all are my gossip true crime friends. So look, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me tell you what happened. This case popped into my brain. I don't even know why it popped into my brain, but child, I have to tell you about it. This is, the case at the time was called the Pom Pom Mom Murder. Pom Pom Murder Mom, something like that. Look, this lady, what was her name? Wanda Holloway. Had a daughter who was in like 7th, 8th grade, and she wanted her daughter to be on the cheerleading squad. And I was like, okay, cheerleading, that's nice. Your little daughter does a little cheer, sings a little song, does a little shimmy, whatever, dresses like a trollop as an 8th grader. Okay, so Wanda was like, oh, I want my baby girl to be on the cheerleading squad. And so I guess cheerleaders had to get votes in that school. Now, this is Texas. And down in Texas, sports ball and cheerleading and all of that, that's practically like religion. Now listen, I'm from Indiana where basketball is religion, but down there in Texas, oh child, they all about the football. Now my family, we live in North Jersey. We don't know nothing about that sports ball. There are people here who do, but my family in particular, not so much. So anyway, what happened was Wanda Holloway really wanted her daughter, middle schooler, right? 7th, 8th grade, really wanted her daughter to be on the cheerleading squad. And so she was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to print up some flyers and I'm going to get some rulers and other little tchotchkes printed up like, Shayna for cheerleading. If she can dance, how come she just can't be on the squad? Okay, but whatever. So Wanda gets all the kids in the neighborhood to go to the school and pass out all these little trinkets that say Shayna for cheerleader so everybody can vote her as a cheerleader. Here's the thing. That's against the rules. You can ask people to vote for you, but you can't give them enticements like candy or, in this case, rulers. And so Shayna was disqualified. Well, Shayna is upset. Her mama's upset. Now, her mama's a trash talker, right? I know something about that trash talking mama life. I am not a trash talking mama. Listen, I trash talk between me and you, but to my kids, not so much. So anyway, also they're sons and they do not care to gossip. It's a tragedy. Anyway, so Wanda Holloway spends all her time trash talking other people to her daughter, Shayna. And she had a son, but she wasn't really worried about that son. She was mostly focused on her daughter. And so her daughter was like, Mama. I'm summarizing. But she was like, Mama, I got disqualified because of the rulers that you had people handing out. And Verna Holloway's daughter now is going to become the next cheerleader. Was it only one spot open? Is there a dearth of cheerleading openings? Whatever. Verna Holloway, Verna, what was Verna's last name? I don't know Verna's last name. Verna's daughter got the spot. So, Miss Holloway was like, Wanda Holloway was like, Verna's daughter is a cheerleader and my daughter Shayna is not a cheerleader. This is a tragedy. And so everybody goes on with the school year. But you know what? Wanda is seething. She is furious. She cannot believe the young Shayna is not on the cheerleading squad. So she's like, listen, I enjoy money. I enjoy shopping. I'm married to a very nice man with some very long pockets. And so we're doing very well living here in the suburbs. I have all the finer things, but the finest thing that I want that I don't have, I do not have my daughter as a cheerleader. And so I'm doing the only thing that I could do. Was the only thing she could do sit and shut her doggone mouth and just be quiet and let her daughter go off a sock or something? That was not it. Did she put her daughter on like a travel cheerleading squad? No. Also, that is not it. She said, I'm going to call my ex-brother-in-law and say to him, hey, Mama Luke, that means idiot. Mama Luke, listen, do you know somebody who can break the legs of the mother of this other cheerleader? Here's the thing. Wanda was operating under the theory that if she broke the legs or potentially unalived her neighbor, Miss Verna, then the daughter would be so upset that she would drop off cheerleading, and then Shayna could be a cheerleader. Now listen, this plan is flawed on so many levels, but clearly Wanda Holloway, not that bright. So the brother-in-law was like, yeah, I know some people. Shades of the Adelson crime family. Check out the Adelson crime family playlist for more on those idiots. So anyway, this brother-in-law is like, so what you want to do, girl? There was no texting back then. You had to talk on the phone. I'm still rapping my bias tape. Forgive me for looking down. So she's just like, okay, give me a call back. If you find somebody, give me a call back, and then we'll work it out. So the brother-in-law was like, okay, cool. Terrific. So the brother-in-law does the only thing he can do, and that is that he calls the police. He said, hello, officer. Listen, my ex-sister-in-law, she is crazy as they come. She wants me to hire a hitman to unalive the neighbor lady, her neighbor, someone who actually lived in her neighborhood. She wants me to unalive the neighbor lady so that her very own daughter can get on the cheerleading squad. And the cops are like, you have got to be kidding. There's no way this is real. So what we're going to do is we're going to set you up with some recording materials. And if you can get her on tape saying that she is interested in unaliving this woman, then maybe we'll believe you. And so the brother-in-law was like, okay. So he calls her up. Hey, Wanda girl, I found somebody. And she's like, oh, for real? He's like, well, how soon do you want it done? And she's like, well, how much is it going to cost me? He said, well, it depends. Do you want the mother and the daughter unalived or just the mother? And she's like, well, what price point? I mean, can I get a coupon code? Do they have Groupon? Did they have Groupon in the late 80s, early 90s? Unclear. Anyway, she was like, how much does it cost? And so the brother-in-law says it costs $5,000 for one and $7,500 for two. She was like, oh, that is a lot of money. Now, listen, I did not do like the adjustment for inflation to figure out how much that would be in today's money. But Wanda was like, Wanda was like, that's a lot of money. But it is worth it. It is worth it. And so Wanda was like, but I have questions. First of all, I still have to decide between if we should unalive the mother and the daughter. Not sure how we're going to do that. But how would they unalive one but not the other since the two of them are all together? And the Mama Luke brother-in-law was like, that is not our problem. I got a guy. You just let me know if you want to do one or if you want to do two, and then we'll go from there. And Verna was like, okay, well, let me get this money together, and then I'm going to give you a call back. You want 10s and 20s? You wanted it to? He was like, yeah, whatever you got is fine. And so she's like, okay, let me do this, and I'm going to give you a call right back. He's like, okay, girl, I'll talk to you later. End recording. So that he hands over the little cassette tape, because this is back in the days of cassette tapes, hands it over to the police, and the police was like, oh, thank you very much. And so we're going to take this half of the trial. So what they do is they go knock on her door early one. Knock. Hey, Mrs. Holloway, can you come outside? And she's like, yes, officer, how can I help you? They say, you have the right to remain silent. And they slap the cuffs on her. And she's like, oh, what? Oh. So here's the thing. They arrest her. It is the talk of this small town in Texas. The pom-pom mom is what they called her. Oh, where was Nancy Grace when this happened? So anyway, she's all up in the news and everybody is talking about her. And so she's like, I will go to trial because I am sure I will not be found guilty. I was just kidding around. This was a big mistake. And so she goes to court. And let me tell you something. She had on, her hair is beautifully done. Lipstick, not a hair out of place. Excellent suit, everything. And she sits there and she listens to the whole testimony. And the brother-in-law gets up and testifies. And they play the tape. And she's sitting there like, I am sure they are not going to arrest me because I am a nice suburban lady. And yes, I recommended unaliving a mother and child over a position on the cheerleading squad, but I can see where these people would think that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. So all the evidence comes in. I can't believe the heifer went to trial, but okay. All the evidence comes in and she's found guilty. And even when she's convicted, she's just like, very stoic, barely says a word. Meanwhile, Verna's like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Oh, God. Oh, the Lord has saved me. It is prayer who has brought me this far. I have come this far by faith. Okay. So the news has Miss Verna like, I can't believe that heifer was going to unalive me. Also, her daughter is talentless, and my sweet daughter is on the cheerleading squad where she belongs. Meanwhile, Wanda was just like, oh, I may have to go to prison. Oh, do you keep your pinkies out in prison? I am very upset. The Mama Luke brother-in-law is over there with Verna and them giving their testimony about faith and God and whatever else and trying to throw open the doors of the church. Meanwhile, Wanda was just like, this is terrible, but my husband has money and we will be appealing this conviction. Very shortly, wait. She's convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison for solicitation of murder. Oh, 1991 is when this happened. Oh, that was right before I moved to New York. Anyway, so Miss Verna is just like, okay, thank God that I am no longer at risk for being unalived. Meanwhile, Miss Wanda is like, oh, I'm going to have to figure out what you can make with Zuzus and Wham Whams over there at the local prison. So they, of course, they appeal the conviction, and it goes before like a higher court or whatever, and the conviction is overturned. A mistrial is declared, and here's why. When they did the jury selection, apparently there's a juror who had a minor drug charge way back in the day someplace, and so they were like, you didn't screen the jury good enough, so it's gonna have to go back to trial. Well, Miss Wanda, as dumb as she seems, is not really that dumb. She was like, I would like to take a plea deal, please. Thank you very much. I would like to do something less than that 15 years in prison that I was sentenced to. So the judge was like, okay, we have accepted your plea. We see here that you've signed and said you threatened to unalive a woman and her child over cheerleading. These people are crazy. Anyway, so she's like, okay, and the judge sentences her to 10 years in prison and a whole bunch of time of probation plus a whole bunch of community service. 10 years in prison? That's a long time. That's a long, long time. And was she accused of solicitation of unaliving? Yes, she earned every day of them 10 years. But oh, girl, but listen, Miss Wanda knew something the rest of us didn't know. And that is that, well, her fancy lawyer was like, hey, girl, let me put you up on game. Go ahead and plead to this 10 years, and I'm going to see if I can get you out a lot sooner. Turns out, 6 months later, she gets paroled. Heifer got sentenced to 10 years and only did 6 months. I guess it was a first offense and it was nonviolent in that it was gonna be violent, but no one was actually killed. A hit person was not actually hired. Now see, this is why I always say, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. You see me over here making bias tape myself. If you want to get something done and you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. Now, should she have out here and unalived this woman herself? No, absolutely not, because that's wrong and she's gonna go to hell with gasoline draws on. But if she wanted to not get caught, she should have maybe considered, a DIY type situation, but I'm glad she didn't because everybody stayed alive. So after 6 months, they did what they call shock probation. That is, you serve a little piece of time and they're like, okay, you've learned your lesson. Bye. Go out and be free. So they sent her out there in the streets of Texas. She could live in my neighborhood. I would have convened the HOA so fast. We don't even have an HOA where I live. I would have put together an HOA solely for the purpose of convening to get that crazy heifer kicked out the neighborhood. And so if you look at like social media, they didn't really have social media back then. But if you look around, it looked like she was living happily ever after. What actually happened though was her moneyed husband was like, I'm tired of this heifer and I'm tired of this mess. He quietly divorced her during the 6 months she was in prison. So yeah, she did her 6 months, but she ended up losing her husband, the love of her child, possibly the love of that son, and her rich husband. Heifer, what you gonna do now? You don't seem like a lady with good problem solving skills. So, she got out of prison after only 6 months. She did her thousands of hours of community service and lived happily ever after-ish. Here's the thing. So I was like, where are all these people now? Turns out that Verna, who they was trying to put the head out on, went on to just live there in the same town in the suburbs, happily ever after, raising her grandchildren, joined the garden club, doing all the regular things. Verna's daughter also went on, just led a regular life. Here's the thing though, Verna's daughter also in cheerleading. I hope they've taught their family to just like pray a lot and be less competitive and don't mess with the crazy neighbors. Wanda Holloway, unclear what happened to her because sis has gone deep, deep, deep underground. Her husband, that rich moneyed husband that she was so happy and so proud with, who divorced her behind, child, married a new woman, got a new family, and went on with the rest of his life and his new children without her and them stepkids and all that other madness. He died recently, and may he rest. His obituary was like, he lived happy without that heifer. I mean, that's not exactly what it said, but that's basically what it said. Meanwhile, Verna's daughter, Chana, whatever, she has been recently interviewed, recently as in the last decade or so, and she's like, look, my mother was always a stage mom. She was always doing too much, and I personally have taken a different stance as it relates to parenting. I just let my children grow and do whatever, and I stay the heck out of it. So listen, a couple of years ago, they had the Varsity Blues scandal, and that is where all these celebrities and rich people or whatever paid all this money for a dude to get their kids into college, and people thought that was outrageous, the most incredible thing they'd ever heard of. You know why they thought that? Because they didn't know about Verna Holloway. Child, I knew about Verna Holloway. When I saw that story, the Varsity Blues scandal, I was like, nobody was unalived. All they did was pay some money for some dumb kids to go to fancy colleges. P.S. Them dumb kids all got kicked out of college, and most of them ain't want to be in college anyway. Child, please. This woman was willing to unalive another mother over 8th grade cheerleading. That's a level of dedication to motherhood that I can appreciate. Also, that heifer is crazy, and like I said before, she could not live on my block. Okay, y'all have a great true crime day. If I find other vintage true crime that I need to talk to y'all about, oh, well, you know I'm going to be right here. I'm going to be right back here up in the sewing room. And look, I got almost all of my bias tape wound up. See, I'm a DIY kind of girl. That's what you got to do, DIY. You have a great day. Bye.